Okay, this is the date today is December 12th, 2014. I'm in my apartment. I was sending a formal complaint and typing out a complaint over the internet to the people that own this apartment building. I don't know if you can see that there or not. Norris Stevens website. There's the owners of this apartment building where I live, and I was filling out a form, making my complaint, and I was just typing near the bottom of it. I'm having trouble sending it for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know if I'm being blocked or what. But near the bottom of it, I'm complaining about how the apartment manager here is acting as a sting operative, and that she's helping the Portland Police Department and Multnomah County Sheriffs to poison me off. And the Portland Police Department and the apartment manager and the maintenance people here tampered with they tampered with my kitchen sink. They had a water filtration system under my kitchen sink, and they were using it. It was connected to our water tap line, and they were using it to poison my tap water. And when I discovered what the fuck it was, I left my apartment to go get a camera so I could come back and get this damn water filtration system on video. And when I came back, it was gone. Now, I already know the Portland Police Department are using sting operatives and are surrounding the various apartments surrounding mine, and the apartment manager here is actually helping and assisting these people. For all intents and purposes, the apartment manager here is a sting operative for the Portland Police and Multnomah County Sheriffs, and probably for any other law agency that operates in the city. From my experiences, I've discovered that apartment managers all over the city of Portland, Oregon, tend to be buddy with people in law enforcement. And I have discovered, by being a witness and a victim of a murder conspiracy, I have discovered that apartment managers generally assist police and or county sheriffs in sting operations. Now, I witnessed the police department committing crimes. I'm a victim of crimes. They don't want me as a witness. My wife was having an affair with, to summarize it as briefly as possible, my wife, Joan Wager, was having an affair with a cop. That cop was having fun setting me up for crimes while he was sleeping with my wife. They was using that officer was acting as a photo double, and he dyed his hair so he could impersonate me. And he had my wife, and my wife in turn recruited our daughters into this shit. And as a result, my wife and daughters ended up being pals with, and we're sleeping around with a bunch of people in law enforcement. So it was personal on their part to frame and or murder me. Now, their initial intent was to frame me as a pedophile. They had my wife on their side, who was, living with me and was she was pretending to be a loving wife. She was trying to hide her affair, and she, behind my back, turned our daughters against me. So they had my wife and daughters willing to lie for them. So all they needed to do, apparently, and I discovered throughout through various circumstances in my life, I have discovered that law enforcement generally, when they want somebody dead, they usually frame that person as a pedophile. So nobody will care if that person is murdered. And they generally use officers that'll dress up like the person they're framing, and then they just stage or commit crimes, or they fake staging crimes, or they'll commit actual crimes, and they have their civilian operatives, like their girlfriends, in this case my wife and her daughters, that were helping and assisting them in setting me up to get the blame for shit. And they do this for photogenic photo purposes. Like, they'll take side shots of the double, and they'll take back shots of the double, and then they just have their operatives point fingers, their civilian operatives, to point fingers and give blame to the people they're framing. And this is generally how they get away with it. And it's generally a sting operation. They use sting tactics to do this. Think of a sting operation where all the operatives are actually committing crimes with the full intent of giving innocent people the blame by association. Think of it that way. So I was quite literally surrounded by sting operatives. My wife and her daughters being sting operatives, and their buddies and their lovers in law enforcement were renting the surrounding apartments surrounding mine, and all this stuff. And they went through an elaborate, time-consuming operation where they were setting me up for a shit ton of stuff. I wasn't their only target, though, so it was a much bigger operation than what when I uncovered it all, I didn't realize how large of an operation it was. I was under the belief it was personal, and it was personal. I was under the belief that it was personal on their part, and that it was a few bad apples in law enforcement that gave my wife and her daughters permission to set me up for this and for that, and that they were being coached and directed by those few bad apples. Well, you know, I had the situation pretty well figured out and pegged to just misjudge the size and severity of it, because it's not an issue of a few bad apples in law enforcement. It's actually the whole everybody in law enforcement does this to people, and they allow their buddies and their relatives, their civilian buddies and their civilian relatives and their civilian girlfriends and whatnot. They allow these people to frame people and to set people up. And law enforcement coaches and directs such people as to how to do this sort of shit to people. And it turns out I was just one of their targets out of many targets. They were terrorizing people. They were using sting tactics to surround their victims. They generally go after victims, people that are generally living alone or don't have many friends or don't have many relatives. These are the type of people that they were targeting. People that don't have help or support from other people. These were the people, you know, like people that are loners, or people that don't have any living relatives left, or people that are disabled and simply don't have any friends in the neighborhood. These were the type of people that these sting operatives are targeting. They gang up on these people. They surround these people so that they can control the area around their target via sheer numbers. And then they can pretty much do whatever the fuck they want, and then they just give their target the blame. And since they place themselves close to their targets, they're able, since they're they're operatives, but they're civilians, they're able to hide and conceal the fact they're connected to law enforcement. And because they live so close to the target, they're able to testify against their target on behalf of law enforcement. So this is how law enforcement uses sting tactics to frame people. Well, this is what they were doing to me. I'm sort of the exception to the rule as far as how they do this sort of shit, because normally they don't turn everybody in a target's family against them. They might turn one or two people in a family against their target, but generally they don't always turn everybody. When they turn everybody in the family against a target, that's when they start smirking and they start thinking to themselves, oh, gee, we could frame him for anything. We got his wife and daughters to lie for us, blah, blah, blah. Oh, we could frame him for murders. We could frame him as a pedo. We could frame him for anything we want. So they take their time. So they were taking their time setting me up. Usually more often than not, I'm under the impression that they gang up on, they'll spend several months targeting certain people, and they'll usually stage a few crimes. They'll use doubles of photogenic photos when they do this. And they usually, near the end, they start terrorizing their target, so that their target will get either angry or scared or upset, and either way will react to how they're being terrorized, and the sting operatives record their target's reactions. And they do this so that they can label them as mentally ill, because they don't appear normal now, do they? If you're being terrorized by a gang that's renting apartments surrounding yours, and they on a daily basis terrorize you, guess what? You're not going to set foot out of your home and behave normally, are you? You're going to be under the belief that you're surrounded by people that have it out for you, and your guard's going to be up, and you're not going to put up with any shit. Well, so guess what? You know, they'll deliberately provoke you, but they'll do it in a really normal way where they're just talking normally. Like they'll use a street theater performance right outside, right in front of your home when you go to leave your home, and then they'll do this deliberate skit right in front of you where they're literally framing you right in front of your face, but they're talking normally, and they're grinning, and they're smirking, and they're smiling, and they're talking at a normal voice. What are you going to do? You're going to blow up at them. You're just going to, you fucking asshole, you fucking piece of shit, you're fucking framing me. Now, what's that look like? See, that's what they want. So the moment you confront these damn sting operatives, as the moment the sting operatives that are on the far side, like either across the street or on the far side of the court, in my case here, there's a courtyard out here. In my situation here, sting operatives on the other side of the courtyard would be having their cameras aimed at me with the full intention of capturing my complaining about these operatives. And they don't show nor admit to the fact that I'm being terrorized and surrounded by sting operatives. All they do is show my reaction, and they'll put that on video, and they'll have that on video, and they'll put that like on local news, or they'll put that on the internet, and then they label their victim mentally ill, because the people you're reacting to just stand there and pretend you're mentally ill for video surveillance purposes. So they deliberately provoke and provoke and provoke and provoke and provoke until you react to it. And that's what they want, is your reaction. Now, they're not going to show these sting operatives will not show any video to anybody or admit to anybody they're provoking you for months and months and months and months. They won't tell anybody that. All they do is show your reaction. So you come across to other people as angry, possibly violent, most definitely not acting normal, especially when you're surrounded by sting operatives that are standing there acting normally. See, that's why they do the provoking. And then after they get to this point, they usually generally either kill their target or they arrest their target. And they only give their side of the story. They never give your side. And they do this on the news all the time, where they'll say, oh, police arrested somebody that was mentally ill at their apartment building, and that they was ranting at neighbors and so on, and they'll say that the person was taken to a medical hospital for evaluation, blah, blah, blah. And that's pretty much, that's the last general population hears about such incidents. Most people are completely unaware that sting operations or sting operatives are actually terrorizing people and provoking people in order to catch such reactions from victims on video. Now, I was typing a complaint to the company that owns this apartment building, because I am now, I know damn well that the apartment manager here is assisting the Portland Police and county sheriffs, local county sheriffs here, in this sting operation. I'm already aware of the fact that most department managers tend to be civilian sting operatives for local authorities. They're usually people that are either related to people in law enforcement, or they're people that were girlfriends or past girlfriends to people in law enforcement. Have you ever noticed how most department managers are female? And they usually live alone. They don't have a spouse. You know why that is? You know why? Because they're not normal people. They don't love people. They don't have the ability to love people. They're mean, vindictive people that enjoy using sting operations to frame and or murder people. And they do so for and alongside law enforcement. They're literally buddies with people in law enforcement. They're either buddies to people in authority, or they're relatives to people in authority, or they're girlfriends or past girlfriends of people in authority. They generally live alone, and they use their power of influence at apartment buildings and whatnot in order to help and assist police in their sting operations. Now, I'm a witness to a murder. I witnessed my wife and her daughters and their fuck buddies in law enforcement and several other females that were in law enforcement using sting tactics to commit a homicide. And I caught the bastards bragging about their crimes on an audio recorder that I put in my wife's purse. I'm a witness, as well as a victim, of a murder conspiracy. Now, I'm already established on past videos that I am surrounded by sting operatives that are using sting tactics to terrorize me and to taunt me. They were poisoning me the whole time I was living here. They were tampering with the water tap line here. They knew that I bought this refrigerator and bought a lock for it. Let me see if I can get a better. I have to stand up. Pardon me, I'm disabled from being poisoned. You have to forgive me. It's not easy for me to stand. It's not easy for me to do anything. It's not even easy for me to talk. It's taken years for me to get to the point where I can actually form sentences. Trying to see if I can get a better angle. Well, here's the kitchen sink right here. I bought this refrigerator over the internet. It cost me like almost $400. I think it was like $360-something. And I bought lock for it. And I'm able to lock up my refrigerator in order to keep people from tampering with my foods. Because they were poisoning my foods. They were mostly poisoning my coffee and my coffee pot, because it was the easiest thing for them to poison. Because it's the one and only thing that I consistently have every day, every single day, is coffee. I'm a coffee drinker. I've always been a heavy coffee drinker. And, so that's what my wife and her daughters were using to poison me. They were poisoning. The first time they poisoned me, my wife just made me a cup of coffee, and she brought it to me, pretending to be a loving wife, and she poisoned it with antifreeze. And I took like one sip of it, and I didn't drink it because it tasted like shit. And I complained to her, and she was she was very nervous about me complaining and noticing it. Of course, I didn't realize at the time she was poisoning me. That's when she first poisoned me. Well, after that first time she poisoned me, from that point forward, she was poisoning the coffee pot reservoir instead of poisoning my coffee cups directly. She stopped bringing me cups of coffee because I complained. So she knows that I noticed. So what her buddies in law enforcement, and this is the difference between average criminals and criminals in law enforcement. Criminals in law enforcement know how to get away with shit. So her fuck buddy, her lover in law enforcement, Officer Eric Carlson, directed my wife, Joan Wager, to not poison my coffee cup and instead to poison my coffee reservoir. And she was doing it when she would, right before she would go out the door to go to work. So when I would make my pot of coffee later in the day, I get poisoned and my wife isn't even home at the time. So she has an alibi of being at work. So this is the kind of tactics that they use. Poisoning is a covert tactic, and they were using covert practices. Well, I need to point out the fact that the reason I started recording this is I was typing a complaint online to the owners of this building about how sting operatives and department manager have tampered with my water tap line, and how they've tampered with the plumbing so that they could hide a water filtration system under the kitchen sink. And the sting operatives were using that to poison the tap water. Ever since I started guarding my food, such as locking up food in the refrigerator and basically keeping my coffee pot, and I keep my coffee and my sugar, and I keep my coffee pot right next to where I sit, so that they can't, nobody can, tamper with it without me knowing about it. In other words, ever since I became more guarded of my foods, that is when they switched from poisoning my foods to poisoning the water tap line. They switched. I can show you evidence. I can't show you the water filtration system because when I discovered they had the water filtration system under that sink, I left my apartment to buy the very camera I'm using to record this right now with. And when I came back, they removed it. It was already but when I was out of my apartment, they removed it, and they put in all new water tap lines with the tags still on the brand new water lines that they put in there. And they still have the jury-rigged plumbing under here. You can see, let me get my lighter, because I don't have a flashlight. I wish I did, but I don't. I'll have to use my lighter to light it up under there a bit. Okay. Now here is the right in here was where they had right in here in this area going all the way down here is where it was. It was these water tap lines, like that one that you see right there, and that one that's right there. Those are brand new water lines that they put in there that are connected to the sink up above, and they weren't there before. The water initially went. They had different lines in here that instead of going to the sink, it went into a big round cylinder that was right in this area here, and it was a water filtration system. And then there was two new hoses that went from the water filtration system to the sink up above here. And when I left, they removed the water filtration system that was under here. I don't... Let me see. It's so hard to see under here. But they have the mounts up here where the water filtration system was bolted to. The water filtration system was bolted in place. I think it was on this damn thing right there. Oh. My lighter's going out. Darn it. Well, anyway. They had the water filtration system in here. The apartment manager lied to me the first day I moved in here, telling me, because I looked under the sink when I was inspecting the apartment for the first time, and saw a big round cylinder type of a device behind these pipes. And I asked, what is that device? And it was dead center. It wasn't to the side over here. It wasn't over here. It wasn't over here. It wasn't under either of these two sinks. It was like right in the middle, right here. And it was a round plastic canister type of a device. And it tapered off into a cone shape, like at the bottom of it. And the apartment manager told me it was a broken garbage disposal that was on their repair list. That's what she told me to my face. And the bitch outright lied. It wasn't connected to this sink or to that sink at all. It was connected to the water tap lines. That's what it was connected to. It wasn't connected to the plumbing, and it wasn't connected to the sink. It was connected to the tap line, and it had new lines going from the water filtration system up to the faucets up here. Matter of fact, I think the mount that they had, that they bolted it to, is still under there. If I had a flashlight, I could get a better look at it. But the mount that they had the water filtration system bolted to is still in place. They didn't remove the mount. The mount is still under there. The mount is like dead center. Let me see if I can get another lighter. This lighter is kaput. Like I said, I don't have any flashlights, so I can't really. Well, anyway, the reason I started recording this in the first place is because I'm complaining to the owner of this building about how sting operatives and how the apartment manager have tampered with this apartment. And the people right next door literally started pounding under their kitchen sink on the other side of the wall there as I was typing this. And right at when I first turned this camera on, you could hear what sounded like banging noises. Well, it's banging noises from the sting operatives that are right next door, and they were pounding under their kitchen sink. So they're illegally, not only illegally recording me inside my own home, but they're aware of the fact that I was typing this complaint to the owner of the building. So that's another attempt on their part to provoke. It's their way of taunting their victims. There's killers in that apartment next door. They're sting operatives. They don't give a shit if I know it either. Okay, I got a different lighter. I might be able to get the mount that they had the water filtration system attached to on video, hopefully. If I okay, I don't know
You can see it, but it's right there. It's that shiny thing in between the two separate sinks. There's the mount that the water filtration system was bolted to. It was also bolted to this here as well, and they had some duct tape and shit around here to try to conceal the fact that they had it bolted. So there was multiple mounts. There was the mount that's up above, right there. That's where they bolted the water filtration system to, right there. And they also had it bolted right along, right back in here where the metal pipe begins, right back there in the back. And I think they had a wire. There was a wire that was connected to this that was also acting as support for holding the weight of this large they hid it very well in here. It was pretty big though. It was also connected to that right there in some way where all that duct tape is. I don't know. I avoid touching any of this shit under here because of the fact that I know that their fingerprints are all over this shit. I know because they were poisoning the tap water, and I don't want to touch anything under here. But they removed it when I discovered it, and those hoses that are under there are brand new hoses. I got video of it. Somebody has since torn off the brand new tags that were on it. It wasn't me. But I got video of the brand new hoses with the brand new tags that they put under it, and that was on the hoses. I've already caught on video Portland police officers coming from the apartment down directly below and from the apartment right next door. And I already knew all along they had this apartment because I've witnessed Portland police officers going to that apartment when I first moved into this place. So for every time that I catch these people on video, there's 50 times I'm catching them when I'm not recording. So, you know, I'm not. It's very difficult to prove to you. Like right now, I see what I already witnessed the fact that police are renting the surrounding apartments surrounding mine. They don't really try to hide it from me. They make it very difficult to prove on video because they try to avoid being caught on video. They don't care if I know. It's like there's nobody I can call that gives a shit. So they don't give a damn if I know. But at the same time, they don't want me proving that the Portland Police Department is surrounding my apartment. And the reason why is because it's premeditated murder. They're literally using sting tactics to commit homicides. I mean, the apartment manager, who is literally not directly below me, but directly below me and one apartment over. And she is literally allowing the Portland Police Department to take over the apartment below me, directly across from me from my right and from my left. So she is helping and assisting the Portland Police in this murder conspiracy. And they were poisoning my foods. They were sleeping with my wife. They were sleeping with my daughters. They were literally staging crimes around any place I happened to go, and they were using an officer as a double and were staging crimes, all for the purpose of giving me the blame. And they bragged on an audio death threat when I caught them committing a homicide. I was severely debilitated at the time and unable to find help, and they were bragging on death threats. I caught them in the act of committing a homicide with an audio recorder by simply placing an audio recorder in my wife's purse. I literally caught them in the act of one of their sting operation and caught these people committing break-ins, and they were planning evidence, and they committed a homicide. And I pretty much caught the whole damn thing on a fucking audio recorder. I already knew my wife was cheating on me. I already knew she's a poisoner. I already knew she had the blessings of her buddies in law enforcement, which is why I couldn't get help at the hospital, and is why I couldn't get help by calling 911. I was in the same situation then that I am right now, only I'm not as debilitated now as I was then. Although it's taken me years to recover from being repeatedly poisoned by these people, they still were poisoning me slowly. I don't know, God knows with what. They were using a water filtration system to poison the tap water. When I discovered it, they removed it. And then they just act like nothing happened. Literally, the apartment manager smirks at me every fucking time I leave here. She smirks. So she doesn't care if I know she's helping them. She doesn't give a shit. She wants me to get angry and pissed for their video surveillance purposes. You know, law enforcement has a tendency to pretend somebody's a bad guy. They'll make some real quick demands verbally, and then they open fire on you. And cops never go stand trial for such deeds, now do they? And they just label the person they kill generally as a bad guy or as mentally ill. And they just never stand trial. So law enforcement is used to putting on performances for video surveillance purposes, and they'll just pretend that I'm some sort of a bad guy so that they could justify shooting me. So this is one of the reasons why they deliberately provoke. Because the moment I react to their provoking, which they were doing just not even an hour, like a half hour ago, if I react to it in any public fashion, way, shape, or form, they will record me complaining. They'll call it ranting. Fuck you, pedophile Portland police officer. Fuck you. Did you just hear that noise? Did you just hear that noise? That came from this apartment right next door. Right at this wall. Right there. Right at this fucking wall. And the apartment manager's directly below them. Now see, they're flaunting it. They're fucking flaunting it. They don't give a shit if I can prove anything. Well, I've already proved on video the Portland Police Department are surrounding the apartments surrounding mine. I already have them on video wearing their Portland police jackets and wearing their black police officer uniforms that they recently switched over to here in Portland, Oregon. Police here in Portland, Oregon used to wear blue uniforms, but they've switched over to black because they want to be more intimidating to people. From time to time, I've still seen police officers here in Portland, Oregon wearing their normal, typical blue uniforms that they usually wear, used for many decades. But most police officers in Portland, Oregon have actually switched over to black uniforms because they want to be more fearsome and thuggish and be more imposing to people. Portland, Oregon has become a very fascist town. And they're very open about it. They're very openly fascist. They don't give a shit if I know. Well, I don't give a shit if they know that I know. Fuck you, pedophile cop. Flash your badge. Whip out a worthless piece of paper you call a warrant, motherfucker. I'm going to look right past your fucking badge and your worthless fucking warrant, and all I'm going to see is Officer Eric Carlson's buddy. That's all I'm going to see. You fucking bastards. They're using sting tactics to murder off people.
They have the apartment manager cooperation, and because of this, the apartment manager allows the Portland Police to take over the surrounding apartments surrounding mine, and they generally harass and provoke and vilify me behind my back and stage and commit crimes and then give me the blame. And they're very much like a gang. They operate like a gang. They think like a gang. They use hand signals like a gang. You know, like if they're outside and they need to communicate with their fellow operatives, and their target is nearby and within hearing range, quite often they won't say something out loud. They'll just use a hand signal in order to communicate. So they're very much like a gang, and they think they're smart. You know, they think they're hiding it, but what they don't realize is I have been a victim of sting operations all my fucking life, and I can peg a sting operation very easily. And I recognize their tactics because I've been a subject of their type of tactics ever since I was 6 years old. I've been subject to sting tactics. So it's pretty obvious for me, and I'm not afraid to fucking tell people about it. And they use when I first moved into this apartment, the apartment manager was lying to me about that device that was under the sink. She told me, oh, it was a broken garbage disposal that's on their repair list. Yeah, right. It wasn't connected to the drains or to the sinks. It was connected to the water tap line. It was a water filtration system. It was about the size of my coffee pot too. Actually, it was probably a little bit bigger than what my coffee pot is there. That's a Mr. Coffee pot. So, that's a 12-cup coffee pot that you can see. You know, to give you an idea of size, the water filtration system that they had under there, it was about the same size, if not slightly bigger than this coffee pot. And it was all black, just like this coffee pot is, and it was all plastic. It was all plastic, but it wasn't like cheap plastic like this, like, you know, a coffee pot plastic is. It was like a more sturdier, thicker plastic. It had like I could only compare it to a garbage can lid. It had like a roundish garbage can type lid on the top of it. And it had like clamps and stuff where you have to unclamp it in order to remove the lid. And it tapered into a cone shape at the bottom of the water filtration system that they had under there. It was all black. It was all plastic. It even had like how you can see on this coffee pot. It has right there. You can see how it has the gauge, so you can see how much water's in it. Well, the water filtration system device that they had under the sink, it had a similar gauge to this. It had a very similar gauge, and it showed about that much of it was all white, where the rest of it was like all gray. Like this area of it was gray, this area was gray, and then it had a square pattern right in the center there where it was like all white. So it had like a water gauge kind of a thing on it. I've never seen a device like it before. I'm going to assume that it's a normal, average type of a water filtration system that somebody could probably order. I don't know. I've never ordered one before, but it's one that connects under a sink.